course, I would feel that way about 3 kids, which is why I only have 2.
Well,
No offense to anyone out there picking up on that mic when he's saying that 3 kids is too many. It's too many for me. 3, you gotta play zone. That's the problem with 3.
No. Oh, I would
2 is man-to-man.
No, the dean of the law school.
It's like what we need is wireless. And they value engineered out. There's no power in there. They're out.
You're not.
I shouldn't get it.
I was only child for a couple years.
Have certain pictures and longings that in courts.
I am, yeah.
It's a separate level of coalition. That's where deep even.
Okay, you don't want to put the power cable, you don't want to do all the cabling and circuit breakers on it. But at least put later. Yeah. We'll run it underneath. Well, there's a parking garage underneath. And these are the people. I was selling your Snickers bar to the expert.
Sure. I usually miss it.
And she used to do all
One of each.
Wow.
So,
Stuff. Good milk.
well, good luck.
Patrick White.
It's for a quilted book.
There we go.
It's for little.
It's for, well, my 5 children. Figure out what would be an appropriate thing to say.
It's transparency.
Well, rather than explain to anyone, I still thought this was a Google Analytics presentation. I just thought I'd leave that.
It's very,
Are they foam?
It might work some analytics.
It's transparency.
Google Analytics.
That's a good idea. Transparency in
Those
the
are
law.
adorable.
Transparency in the law.
but then the other pages are more interactive.
I even sent it to Elmer with the bolds. Sure. It's too big a conference to read the whole evening. The bolds are not just for today.
Ah.
Also, the subtle dig at Tom Brady decided to do that.
Get a hold of Frank. See if we do one of those lunch things. Actually, what's funny is, I'm pretty sure he said one of Craig's.
Oh my God. And when is this due?
There's lagging puts and Tom's feet on the furniture.
I'll be doing that tomorrow.
End of the day, end of the day.
That's right.
Well, no.
Closed.
If Tom's watching this, Tom's in California. It's probably going to be the lunch break at the conference he's at. We'll know at the precise moment whether or not he's watching, whether or not my phone rings.
You didn't want me to Skype him?
He's either watching or he's not. Charlotte, we're going to
Somebody needs to get him in Slack, because we all know that Tom loves using new technology.
No, we have Slack. We have Slack at work. We have Slack. Not for everything.
He's just an interesting article. Yes, they discovered the gift function.
So we have a.
Excuse me, somewhere else.
We have our probably most used Slack channel is we have everybody put interesting
My mom was like,
articles in, and Charlotte calls them for stuff to put on.
I like
Twitter and
starting
Facebook. But the tech team uses it. The tech team uses it for,
Shall I call him?
he's either sitting in, I mean, it's 11:30 where he is, so he's either sitting in.
oh, he's watching this. If he's on Skype, he's watching this. You're watching him. You're welcome. That's not anybody's expectation. My boss just told me not to. Serving food at your party.
Where's JJ?
I'm not his keeper.
He demanded cats in my PowerPoint, which he did not
He said he was
There
coming.
was no express quid pro quo that if I had facts in my slides, he would come.
I believe he will.
But it was implied. It
You
was
might be
implied quid pro
recording.
quo.
You might already be recording since it's 2:30, so I'm not going to answer
The
that.
recording starts 5 minutes before.
I
Oh,
understand.
we're recording the whole time.
Craig has cats in the presentation for.
Hey, you Mr. Jorgensen. Hey, you John Jorgensen. He was, unfortunately for him, not specific about what kind or the size of the cat. So. Oh well.
Well, at least one. A pug. Be holding real.
Yeah, there's some pugs in it. We got pugs too. They're incidental pugs. There are actually quite a few incidental pugs. Because you got the picture there. And there's a picture of all of us Justias and all the pug. It's not the pugs that are incidental in that photograph. Well, we try watching too. Why would we be?
Oh, mine's was nice.
Mine was nice.
Baltimore. Because
I want one of
there were
those too,
mines
because I'm
juggling
at
knives.
the words that have adjacent. You guys see your picture on the socials today? You're welcome. Listen, I sent a few pictures to Mark, he's the one that chose. He also gave me photo tracks.
What, do you wanna?
I was gonna say.
Still on Justice.
They're easy.
I feel bad because it's like, death from leaving an archive.
That's fine. So sorry.
All right, yeah, we should. Hi, everybody. I guess we'll start. This is up here as the last explanation of this is not a Google Analytics presentation like it was supposed to be. If you were expecting Google Analytics, feel free to wander out of the room. Although, since the change was announced at the plenary this morning, you will be telling on yourself for doing so. Instead, due to popular demand, we will be talking about the future of the Oyez project. I promise we will be entertaining. Even if you were expecting analytics, you should stay because this will be entertaining. And to prove that, we will kick off with the always entertaining Tim Stanley.
Hello. So yes, I mean, Oyez, it's been around, I think, for like almost 20 years now. It used to be the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Supreme Court, and then it became a website. And I mean, I've known Jerry Goldman probably for at least 20 years. Was when I was doing Fine Law when we were first starting up, got connected to him when he was starting up Oyez, actually by way of Hale Variant, actually, when he was still at Michigan. And so we both sort of started things at the same time. So we've done a lot of different work back and forth with Fine Law back in the day, at least while I was there. I mean, when I left, it wasn't quite the same. And then with Justia afterwards. And right now, I mean, Justia is doing some back-end hosting. We do some some work on it. But certainly we aren't, we're sort of more like IT support type staff and, help out periodically with different other types of support. But, just not really the main drivers by any means. This is the main driver guy. So this is Jerry Goldman, and this is Sheba, and Rio, both actually are here. And so, I don't know if many of you guys know Jerry. He was a professor at Northwestern, then became emeritus, was over at Chicago Kent the last few years as an adjunct professor. He created this whole thing. So, I mean, very rarely do you get someone that sort of drives things and sort of makes things just sort of go. I would say Jerry is very, very driven. I would probably, he makes things happen. I mean, he can sort of drive you and get you to do things and make things really sort of move along. So, he had this basic idea that he wanted to get the audio up of well, at least initially, some of the Supreme Court cases, and then just took it all the way back, put up all the audio, went back to the archives, lots of fixes that he did to it, add transcripts to it. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of work that he's done and that he's put up, and it's really quite impressive. And he's a great teacher and everything else. I mean, he's one of the, in terms of the folks I've known on the internet, one of the guys who's really been out there a really long time and stuck to it. I mean, lots of other folks sort of come and go, but Jerry really sort of made the stuff move. Here's a couple of the folks that are currently on his team, sort of his current leaders. This is Matt and LII. Matt is going to, relatively soon, like next week, start working for the Democrats in Iowa to fight against Trump, which is good, in my opinion. In my opinion, and the majority of Americans' opinion. And Ellie's been doing a lot of the marketing stuff and a lot of the social media things like that. And she's going to sort of talk with you, Craig, and you guys are going to sort of figure out how that'll continue. But Matt, has really done a great job in terms of getting the overall platform stable, all the new redesign, everything else that came by way with Matt. And he had some stuff that he had to move over and transfer over, and he's done a really good job of it. And I'm glad he's working for the Democrats. I'll just say that. Here's another picture of him with Jerry. They're eating like donuts here. This is from this week, and they've eaten all the donuts, but they're sharing one donut. So that's them working. Okay, that's right now. Look at that. I think the Kelly website's up there. See that? It's the Kelly website right there. Right. So hey, how you guys? All right, this is Jeff Parsons. So Jeff, did a lot of tech stuff before Matt came over. There's a lot of other things with sort of fixing up the audio and stuff. He's actually over there right now meeting with Matt and going through and figuring everything out. So he's a former Microsoft guy. He's done a lot of help for Oyez over the years, and really smart. So he'll continue sort of helping us out and sort of at least make sure everything gets transitioned properly, and we might do some additional projects outside Oyez together as well. And here's the Parsons team at Wrigley. So if you ever go visit Jerry, you always end up going to a Cubs game because for me it's hockey, for Jerry it's Cubs, loves the Cubs. This is Jim, I'm going to misspell his name, but Ferraro? How you say it? Ferraro? All right. He did some of the design work on the new Oyez. Whoops, what happened? They could come back. There we go. Yeah, I said it was wrong. Yeah, that was the wrong pronunciation of his name. So he did the design work, and it made it look really nice. So if you've seen the different versions of Oyez over the years, the current one looks really nice and clean. Christina, she used to do what Allie does. So she did a lot of sort of different editorial stuff, different style stuff, make sure the website was looking good. Andrew did some tech stuff as well. Joe, Joe was also another tech guy. We had a lot back and forth with him back in the days. So he was, pre-Matt. And these guys, I couldn't find their photos. So Chris was a tech guy, and Pat is an audio guy. But I'll try to find their photos up. What we'd like to do is get profiles of these guys up so you can sort of see the history of Oyez as things go forward. But that's Chris's Facebook thing. You can't find any photos of him on Facebook, So we'll have to find a new photo. And Pat, I couldn't find the photos. There are a lot of Pat Wards now in America. And Dennis, all the audio. Have you ever gone in there I'll show you in a couple seconds really quick. Have you ever seen like the video of the Supreme Court and all that stuff? That was Dennis put that stuff together a long time ago. And Rich was one of the original guys back when it was the Hitchhiker's Guide. So this is a pre-Oyez guy, so back in the old days. But again, there's a lot of folks that have worked on this, and these are just some of the folks, but these have been some of the key folks that have sort of made things really happen. I mean, I know students have come through, written annotations, all different types of things, but these sort of been the real sort of drivers. And if I'm missing somebody, I apologize. I'll talk to Jerry and try to find out who else we might be missing. And then there's really two law schools that have sort of been really sort of driven it. Northwestern, when Jerry was there, he had the original thing up, and they sort of kept that stuff going. And then was over at Chicago Kent the last number of years, and they've done a lot of work, and they were very, very supportive of Oyez. And certainly, I haven't talked to anyone at Northwestern, but I know with Chicago Kent, we hope to keep a relationship going with, and I think that'll be something ongoing. We're going to do a co-branded version for them as well, a branded Chicago Kent version, do a lot of things with Chicago Kent, and I'm sure there'll be additional projects as well. I mean, I think, that's where Cali is. You got to keep your mind as the folks that actually are helping like free law stuff. Here's the Oyez homepage again, very clean. We'll add text to this for SEO purposes, but other than that, it'll be pretty much the same. And they have bios of the Supreme Court justices. These are really good bios. And this is the 360 degree, not 3D. It's obviously 2D, 360 degree tour of it. That's a really cool thing that he has. And then, of course, you have the cases. This is sort of the driving stuff of Oyez, but I think we'll be adding additional content around it. There's a bunch of stuff which Craig will talk about in a little bit. And of course, nice case summaries. You get nice pictures of the judges. And the real thing is the oral arguments in the audio. That's sort of in the transcripts of the audio. That's sort of the big thing. So, if you want to listen to Griswold in 1965, there it is. It goes all the way back. There are cases back in the 1950s. So it's really really quite impressive. And there's a lot of work, a lot of corrections, a lot of fix-up that Jerry and his team have done. And it's really from a pure sort of Supreme Court sort of center. It's probably probably the most impressive website out there. They also have some apps and some other things. There's some other features of the site, but this is sort of the core stuff. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Craig to talk about the future.
All right, so this is part two, Newton on his soapbox. For those of you that saw my debut at Cali last year in Denver and got my soapbox speech about law students thinking of themselves as special little flowers and how counterproductive that was to teaching tech, different soapbox today, but nevertheless a soapbox. So we're going to start with a riddle. What do these three things have in common? A 90-year-old merchant marine steamer, a zebra, and Tom Bruce. There is no punchline. This is not a joke, believe it or not. So when you put these close-ups in perspective of the whole photo, the answer becomes pretty obvious. There's your merchant ship. There's your zebra, and there's Tom. Again, the answer's obvious at this point. We do better when we travel in packs. For those of you that are observant would have noticed on the ground floor this year, as well as many years in the past, a sign like this, relevant for today's purposes, is the logo at the bottom. So for years, this has been a concept, the idea of various free law sources working together under one umbrella to get things done. It's been mostly a concept, and just a concept. This Oyez project is really our first opportunity to put some substance behind this, to prove that the concept works, and to be a team. So I was asking myself, as I was sitting here listening to Tim talk, am I really ready to be on a team with Tim Stanley and Justia? And honestly, I don't quite feel 100% ready, and I think it's because I don't look ready. So I think, to work with Tim, I'm going to need to put on a t-shirt, hat. I'm ready.
Untuck your shirt.
No, wait, I'm not quite ready. Now I'm ready. So now I'm ready to be on a team. I'm ready to be on Tim's team now. I got the uniform on. I'm good. Couldn't figure out a way to change into shorts, so that didn't happen. So when Tim was talking about Jerry, he mentioned sort of the early days and the things people were doing a long time ago when I was an undergraduate in the 90s. And these are sort of an honor roll. There are certainly other folks. These are the ones I'm going to pick on. Alan Sugarman successfully sued West over copyright issues in the 90s, back when they were claiming copyright in their pagination and their error correction on the opinions they were publishing. As I said, he was successful. Jamie Love was an advocate for the government opening up government data in databases of all shapes and sizes across, I think, a few different disciplines. He also was very successful. Carl's been doing what Carl does. Enough said about that. Peter Martin and Tom Bruce, obviously the folks that I owe my current position to at the LII, and Jerry Goldman. So there's Alan, there's Carl, there's Jerry again, there's Peter, there's Tom. And I'm even going to add John Mayer in there, even though he wasn't on the list, because much like the Harrison Ford Indiana Jones thing he did yesterday, you know, trying to look younger than he really is, but in truth, some of us have seen him when he hasn't had a chance to get fully, you know, groomed for a Cali conference. So two things to take away from this slide. Lack of diversity notwithstanding. Two other things to take away from this slide. The first is that these folks are all coming to the end or have already reached the end of their professional careers. We all owe them, all of us in the free law community owe them a huge debt of gratitude. They have certainly earned their rest and their retirement, and we don't begrudge them that. But they're mostly done. And they're not going to be around forever, and they're not going to be around to carry the torch on these issues much longer.
Practically dead already?
And of course, not everybody. You know, Tim will be young forever, as will his partner in all things, Stacy. And of course, this young, handsome John Jurgensen, who's not here to defend himself. So, you know, some of the folks, some of the pioneers are still young and spry and active and full of caffeine. But for the most part, the point is, it's not always the money that runs out. It's often the money that runs out, but that's an easy thing to hide behind in free law and looking at where free law is and where it's going. This is an example of, any of you remember the American Legal Ethics Library that was part of LII? It's been gone for a decade. We still get complaints from people that we don't maintain this anymore. And the reason we don't maintain this isn't because of a lack of interest on either viewership part or our part in doing it. It's not because there's no money to do it, frankly. It's because the stuff in here was populated by a network of law professors and they retired. They're gone. And some of you know me well enough to know my background as a Navy guy. And in the military, it's a cardinal sin to not train your relief. But that's not the culture everywhere. And I'm sure every one of you that comes from a law school knows of programs and projects that just stopped when the people responsible for them left. And there was no handover, there was no momentum, and they just went away. So it's not always about the money. And we wanted to make sure, to tie this back to Oyez, that that's not what happened with Oyez when Jerry retired. Which brings us to part two, what I'm supposed to talk about, which is Oyez. So for those of you that were really hoping for analytics, I put a little bit of them in. So I guess that's probably big enough that most of you can see it. If not, shame on you for sitting all the way in the back. This is our traffic writ large for the last 12 months ending back in May. What's that say? 47 million-ish sessions, just shy of 30 million users, just shy of 115 million page views. But that's for everything we do, the code, the CFR, the federal rules, everything. Oyez traffic on just what they do, Supreme Court, especially audio, is what, about 9 million sessions, about 5 million users, about 15 million page views. So pretty good for the limited scope of their mission. This is the way our traffic breaks down. The first thing I would point out is that a third of our traffic is in the US code, a full quarter of our traffic is now in the CFR, and you got to go all the way down here to find our Supreme Court stuff. Why are there two different lines for Supreme Court, you might ask? I'm pretty sure the answer is the stuff on line 7 is the more modern stuff, and the stuff on line 8 is the historical stuff. I don't see anybody in the room that can tell me I'm wrong, so we'll go with that. I'm pretty sure that's right, though.
You're right.
Charlotte says I'm right. That's good enough. Good enough for me. This is the moment my phone will ring if Tom's watching. Hi, Tom. Tom's at a conference in California, and it's probably lunchtime, so he probably is watching. And if he didn't call when I changed into Tim's uniform, he'll call now to correct me on our collection organization. But the thing about this is, even though these numbers are fairly low relative for us and what we do, and again, you can see those two things add up to under 7 million, and Oyez doing 9 or 10. So they're kind of kicking our butt. But what I like about these numbers are these very high time on pages. So when people come to our site to do Supreme Court stuff, they don't bounce real quickly. And that's really good news. And if I were doing analytics, we'd talk a lot more about that. Getting into our Supreme Court stuff, you can see that those two, in the page views column, you can see that those two numbers don't add up to 3.4 million. So there's obviously stuff I left off that's kind of random small stuff. But the majority of our traffic, line 1, those are the opinions. And line 2 are the Supreme Court bulletin previews that the students author, which I'll talk about more in a second. So you can see the overwhelming majority of our traffic is in the opinions. But again, I'd point out the time on page for both of those collections are really pretty high compared to our overall average time on page. So that makes me feel good that when people get to stuff on our site, that's Supreme Court stuff, they stick around.
Just remind me, what is the collection period for this?
So anything that's in this is.
I mean, like, this is a week's thing?
Oh no, this is the year.
Okay.
This is 12 months. I thought you meant the collection on the cases.
Oh, no.
So because this is, but to answer that question for all those people who are wondering it, this is the stuff that's in line 7, the SUPCT. So this is all the cases from 92 on, I want to say. And then the stuff in line 8 is historical, so pre-92. But that doesn't tell the full story of our traffic and what we think the interest is in Supreme Court stuff. Because we've also got about 10% of our traffic into WEX, which is our online legal reference. And if you look at what people are looking at in WEX by drilling down on that, you see that the majority of these topics are constitution-y, Supreme Court-y in nature. And so while WEX overall is only 10% of our traffic, the Second Amendment page has almost 600,000 hits a year. And I guarantee you, there's, if you put the top pages, even though U.S. Code and CFR are our largest, most trafficked collections, there's nothing in there that would come close to making this list until we expanded it way into the hundreds and hundreds of most popular pages. So these are very important pages to us because these are things that people are interested in, and bringing Oyez into the fold gives us a chance to tell a more complete story on all of these topics and present that in a coherent and comprehensive way for our visitors. So what do we have? Going into this, what we have are Supreme Court related materials. Let's see if these hyperlinks work. This is dangerous. Live performance art here. The bench opinion. It's campaign season. Remind me later. End of the fiscal year. Remember to give. That's in case your fundraiser's watching. So these are the. This is the bench opinion, right? There's no reason to prolong this at all. Go back. We have these bulletin previews. So that was U.S. v. Windsor, which is the Defense of Marriage Act case from 2012, I'm going to say. This is our preview that my students wrote. Questions presented. So there's an executive summary, questions presented, issue statement, the facts, a discussion of the impacts of the case, and an analysis of the arguments the two sides are making. We publish these a week or two prior to oral argument. You can subscribe to get these in your email. You can get them via Twitter or Facebook from us. It's completely free. They're wonderful. 12,000 subscribers can't all be wrong, right? But where I think the future of these previews are are in these keywords, really, across the top there, those all caps hyperlinks there, because this is as close as 95% of the LII's pages are machine generated. We're picking up a data feed from wherever and republishing it in a way that we feel adds value, right? Whether it's the code of the CFR, the federal rules, or whatever. This stuff obviously is not. This is part of the 5% of stuff that we create, some version of us creates. And this is as close as we come to curated content. And these keywords allow us to use these previews as sort of a Rosetta Stone to take everything that we've got that relates to these same topics, whether it's US v. Windsor or whether it's any of these broader topics like equal protection, and create one place with easy navigation for that visitor to find everything that we can tell them on that topic. And bringing Oyez into the fold is really sort of a call to action for us to get that done. So what else do we have? The last thing we have, the last hyperlink, is we do have some case summaries. In Windsor, I picked this one because we happen to have a decent summary. So again, heavily linked into a lot of those WEX topics that people are interested in, like Fifth Amendment. And there's another link down here to jurisdiction somewhere I noticed earlier, right there. So that's kind of what we have at the LII already when it comes to Supreme Court stuff. Oh, this scares me. We'll just minimize that instead. All right, I want to close out my slides there. Oyez's case page for Windsor. Come on. Don't enable the add-ons, just give me Windsor. Okay, there it is. There's Oyez's page for Windsor. As Tim noted on the left, all the media files. But there's also there's a fairly thin editorial layer here, which has been done traditionally by Chicago Kent students, as Tim alluded to. Facts to the case, questions presented, conclusion. And then they also have a little one-liner that appears in the list of cases for any one term. So part of the challenge is going to be figuring out how to not be redundant in the work that the Chicago Kent students are doing on the Oyez site and the work that my students are doing on the Cornell site. Which leads us generally to talk about next steps for integrating Oyez. The first thing we need to do, as Tim mentioned, meetings are ongoing right now. He downplayed his organization's role in those meetings that are going on in Chicago right now, but they're figuring out all the technology so that there will be no interruption in the way the audio files are gathered and processed and posted, et cetera, as well as the rest of it. Second thing, as I briefly alluded to, is this editorial layer. We want to be, as Tim mentioned, we want to keep Chicago Kent involved, so to the extent that their students are continuing to expect to work for Oyez, we would like to keep them working for Oyez. We just need to find a way to do it where they're not doing the same thing that our students are doing, because there's plenty to do. So we need to figure that out, which is easy enough. Those conversations just have to happen. We need to optimize the pages, which I think Tim also alluded to. The navigation back and forth from the stuff on the Cornell site and Oyez site. I'm remiss in not having mentioned the fact that while we have the bench opinions, Justia on their site, of course, has the published opinions. So that needs to be worked in to the comprehensive solution here of what we're trying to build. Tim also mentioned SEO to the Oyez site. We need to make sure that when people are coming in from Google, they're landing on the page they want to land on, or they were hoping to land on, whether they know it or not. That is a challenge for us at the LII across our website. We often try to design things under the assumption that people have landed on the wrong page. So that's SEO, and that's also usability. Usability to me is, again, presenting everything across the three sites, Justia, Oyez, and Cornell, that we know on a topic in a way that is both comprehensive and not overwhelming. So those are a lot of the challenges that we face. And in some ways, this is, like, even within I'll be the first to admit, within Cornell's site, you can't right now get from an opinion back to the preview of that case. We need to improve that. Charlotte's looking at me because there's an exception, but as a general rule, that's true.
I believe that the previews are now of the Supreme Court opinion.
For the new stuff. That's why I mean there's an exception.
Okay.
That's like new this year, though. So for the vast majority of it, that's the case. So we have a lot to do, and we've known for a while we've had to do it, and this is really sort of as I said earlier, sort of a call to action for us to step up and do it. And lastly, spread the word. Tim also mentioned the notion of allowing other academic institutions, I think he mentioned Chicago, Kent specifically, but others as well, pretty much free and unfettered access to this stuff, to do whatever they want with it, to do their own research with it, to package it up and skin it however they want, and provide their own add-ons, again, consistent with this idea that everybody in the free law movement needs to be rowing in the same direction. We are not going to covet this stuff and not share it with the world. So once we get our ducks in a row, that'll be the next step, is spreading the word on what we've got and how we hope people will use it. And hopefully that will trickle down to some of the institutions represented in this room today. So what's the future for all this? I get to get back on my soapbox now and talk about free law a little more generally. So who's the next generation? And sorry, Dan, I'm not talking about that next generation. I know you're a fan. But I'm talking about folks like Mike at Free Law Project and Pablo at Casetext, Dan and Nick at Ravel. And in most cases, I've had like one or two conversations with these people. Jack, who gave a great presentation yesterday from the Library Innovation Lab at Harvard. All these folks that are going to be part of the group that steps up and takes over for all those balding and bald old folks, and keep free law alive and well. And if you're doing free law out there, if you're watching or if you're in the room and you're not on the slide, first I apologize, but second, make some noise. Get our attention and get on our radar, and I mean our collective radar, and we will gladly welcome you into the tent. And I also have to include ourselves on this, and not just because hi Sarah, just because she's with Tom in California, not out here with me. But we intend to be part of the future. We do not intend to have the succession problem that Jerry had, and that a lot of people have had. We intend to go on after Tom deservedly steps away, just as we went on when Peter Martin stepped away 10 years ago. And as Sarah says in the picture, she has more ammo than you, which is, though I think not the original intention of the slide, we're funded, we're going to be around, and frankly, we'd like to think we have expertise that will allow us to be part of the next generation, despite being one of the old folks, too, in the free law game. So remember this logo. This is the free group. And I don't see any reason why I can't look like this, or even like this, in the not so distant future. And I feel like Tim feels the same way. In other words, it's a big tent. Of course, some big tents are circuses, but some big tents are parties. So, I want to close, and we wanted to leave plenty of time for questions, and I think we've been successful. Remember this slide? When I made this slide this morning, last week, when I made this slide, I was thinking about ships that end up looking like this, and zebras that end up looking like this, and web pages that end up looking like this. Sorry, end of life, it's not here anymore. The old guys went away. But you got to remember, it's not just the vulnerable that travel in packs, it's the strong too. So that ends my big tent revival. And Tim and I have left plenty of time for questions about the future of Oyez, or the future of free law, or how to use LinkedIn to get a job.
Connect me on LinkedIn. It'll help.
Mr. Blackaby.
Yes. Is there any functionality that's not currently on the Oyez site that you see that Justia or LII will do to enhance the current site?
Well, I think just having everything on all three sites that fits together, navigable to each other easily, probably qualifies under. So the question was, is there any functionality in Oyez that we're planning on right now? And as I started to answer, I think just the idea of putting everything sort of virtually under one roof, if not actually, in terms of the way it's connected, is a step in that direction. Honestly, we've been at this for a month, maybe 2. This is happening pretty quick. Jerry's actually technically retired, right? June 1, May 31 was his retirement date. So there was a lot of what do we have to do now? As Tim said, Jerry's one developer, his last day was yesterday, right? The 16th? Jeff Parsons out there. But Matt, a lot of knowledge in Matt's head. It's going. He's available. But the point being, there was a lot of how do we make sure there's an uninterrupted, fortunately and not coincidentally, there's no more audio coming out for this term. And we have until arguments start again in October to really get our ducks in a row on the technical side of processing the audio and getting the audio posted. Some of the editorial stuff has a little longer lead time.
I throw a couple things which I think will happen. One, we got to look at the back end code. Right,
You probably should.
sorry.
Sucker your stuff.
All right, okay. All right. So, we got to look at the back end code and figure out what exactly is going on and what's sort of easy to adjust and make changes with. So, we have some experience with it. And certainly Matt has gone through everything. We have documentation, but that's really been this week. That's really relatively recent. The other part that I think will happen is the ability to bring in more outside editorial information, whether it's different news feeds or blog feeds or things. And I know Craig and David Kemp and some other folks, I think you're going to talk with Ali, sort of what's currently going on with the OIA, but also, could you bring in Scouta's blog? Could you bring in a number of the other Supreme Court bloggers and things like that, sort of to add content and sort of come with a tagging system so we're easily able to tag it to link back out to these blogs so that, you can come there, you can sort of see what some of the related articles are, and you can sort of go over there. And then hopefully those articles remain up, as sometimes blogs go away. And then the other sort of big item, which Craig alluded to on the tech side, is we really got this core corpus, and there's certainly fixes that need to take place there. I don't want to say that any of this stuff's perfect. There are every once in a while issues with the audio. There are once in a while issues with some of the transcript type things. But the idea to be able to sort of have that core stuff be skinned out in different ways to allow different universities to use it or different organizations to use it will be sort of another sort of step. And again, starting probably with Chicago Kent, but we talked to some other folks here as well that seem interested in it. And that'll be nice because then they can sort of create their own sort of academic branded centers, have this stuff there, but keep their overall look and feel and bring in their own professor stuff that they want to feature and different items like that, which obviously will then get more interest from the law schools. So. Okay. All right.
Don't go far. Other questions?
Have any questions about the iSCOTUS blog? I'm your admin, so talk to me.
Great. We talked briefly earlier today, but you did not reveal that. She also does the social media for the rest of Chicago Kent.
Oh, good.
That she confessed to earlier.
Yeah.
With public.
Well, and so right now, if we go back, if you look at, let's see if I can pull this off here. If you look at Oyez website, look at that. So their blog right now, how am I not going to find it?
It's the news section.
News, right? So this is what Tim was talking about. Explorer is just lovely, isn't it? So the news takes you to this is a Chicago Kent blog, right? And what Tim's talking about is having this blog be one of several. So for example, Mike Dorff at Cornell, who writes about constitutional law issues, is probably somebody we'll put in there. Justia's got a bunch of authors through its verdict platform, some of whom will also be in there, that sort of thing.
But the other thing, right now the blog's one news link right there. And you can integrate the different articles into different cases, right? So in different tags, we have different subject matter guides like on WEX, and those same things can sort of come and be integrated into WEX as well as resources. So if we get the tagging system done right, and we do that, like the categorization of cases that you guys were talking about earlier, get that lined up, try to get the bloggers to sort of work with it in order to feature them, or the other news media folks. I think there'll be a way that it won't just be, a single maybe news page of current awareness stuff, but you also have different centers on different constitutional issues. And then also each individual case, we have an article that's related to that case, we'll have links off to the different resources there as well. So I think there'll be a lot more, sort of outside internet social integration into the site, where, Oyez is there, but then people can link off to these other sources, which will be good. And then again, if Chicago can have their own co-branded one, they might really focus on their folks and maybe bring in some of the stuff if they want to. That's totally up to whatever school wants to do what they want to do. That's not up to us to decide. But I think the big Oyez one would be sort of the Big Ten stuff that Craig's been talking about.
Yeah, and as far as which of this stuff will live at oyez.org and which of it will live at law.cornell.edu is up in the air and fluid. And I tried to talk to Tim about it last night, but he was watching his Warriors get pounded. So I gotta do whatever you want to do. That's not a foul.
It wasn't fun.
Anybody who watched the game knows exactly what I'm talking about. But so anything else?
So are you
More.
thinking, for example, we've got some legal faculty that have their own blogs and focus specifically on, like Professor Nahman focuses on Section 1983 extensively. He teaches constitutional law. He blogs regularly. I do have him using categories in his WordPress blog. Each category can have its own feed. If you're talking about things like that, where you kind of have a built taxonomy and you tell faculty, as long as you consistently use this, we will.
That's what you were saying last night.
That's exactly right. So he could do different sort of tags or category feeds. And
You're ahead of the game. Great job.
certainly there's the main Chicago Kent blog, but each professor that has their own blog can also do the same thing if they're writing about constitutional law. And there's different levels of bloggers out there, right? There are bloggers, like the academic bloggers tend to be pretty good. Some of the other bloggers, it's shit, right? You don't want to bring that stuff in necessarily in the practitioner world. You read about car accidents on I-70 if you want to. There's plenty of blog posts about them with constitutional issues about interstate commerce. But from that standpoint, we'd be looking for the higher quality stuff, which, I think on the academic side, that's a no-brainer.
Happy to partner with you for Chicago Fed people. I'm probably the one training them anyway.
And also, we'll probably figure out a way to tag particular cases if they really want to focus on a case. There's lots of different things we can do on that, so it can really sort of be like a place that sort of takes people out to the different commentary that's out there.
More. Anything else? So one thing I failed to mention is as I mentioned, we at the LII have a lot to do about taking those previews and everything. We ought to be able to learn about how our content can be organized around topics, especially topics related to constitutional issues. We have a lot to do, but we also have a lot to think about and a lot to learn. And if you're somebody, especially a law librarian, or know somebody, especially a law librarian, who likes to think about and organize that kind of thing, we actually are sitting on a restricted gift for just that purpose. And we need to hire a law librarian part-time. I have business cards up here. Tell your friends, because the only thing that's stopping us is someone raising their hand and saying, I'd like to do that. So there's that too. Anything else? We left too much time for questions, but that's fine.
I may have something, but I need to check.
Sure. Question is, will there be popcorn downstairs again during this break? Dan, fill the time.
I actually asked this to him last night while watching the Warriors game. But we were talking about B-Press and how the repositories work. Is there any role for institutional repositories to feed into this?
Yeah, I think it'd just be like blog posts or other articles, right? If they're tagged properly, and we get the tagging system down, we just have to get the feeds. And then you could take, whatever the articles are on B-Press or at Reed Elsevier's SSRN. Just kidding. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. But certainly B-Press, I think, would be ones that we could work with, and I think they'd be relatively receptive to it. But it's really sort of working with the other academics and law librarians and folks trying to figure out what the core taxonomy should be, and then once, the editorial folks have it on the tech side, we'll execute on it, and then we just have to bring the stuff in. And we do that with like blog search, and we do a bunch of different things like that, where we have lots of taxonomies and things that we bring in for different posts.
Okay, so I do have a question, and it's really a free law question. And that is, have y'all worked on, thought about, whatever, the issue that now Georgia's rules and regulations are so locked down that citizens can't print them unless they buy them?
We'll see how that turns out in litigation, right? So I think Fast Case should win that.
They are litigating it.
And I think for the code itself with Carl, we'll see how that turns out too. I'm involved with publicresource.org, so a lot about that case.
And just, a word about Fast Case. Ed Walters at Fast Case did not make my list of older or not so older pioneers, but, and that's, in part because, frankly, he's running a business and he's got a board and
They have some free stuff up. They have PLOL.org, things like that. And he's on Carl's board.
but he's, Ed's definitely one of the, to use a gender-specific phrase, he's one of the good guys in the free law movement, and he's highly supportive of everything that we at LII and everybody else does in this area, and he pitches in when and how he can with talent and resources and texts and whatever else he can lend. So we're definitely in his corner, just not even from a philosophical standpoint, but just from a he's with us standpoint on this litigation with Georgia. And
separately with Georgia in particular, though, that also becomes a political issue, right? I think some of the citizens should take that up.
Yeah.
And I do think that's the way, Carl sort of approaches publicresource.org. There's a political component to it, there's the litigation component, and then there's the technical component, just getting stuff up. Or like, he worked on SEC documents back in the 90s, and he got it up and running to get Edgar going, and then he handed it back to the government. Same thing with patents, he's about to release that, and then wanted the government to take it over. So a lot of that, you'd like the government to do it for free and use standards, and it's not a matter of private publishers like Justia or Fast Case or even free folks like Cornell doing it. You've got to get the official sort of public citation stuff put out by the government for free that ideally would also be downloadable in bulk, and then who knows what comes out of it, right? There'd be 100 rabble laws or case text out of that type of thing. But there has to be a little fight politically, and sometimes that's hard with some of the court systems. So, but we'll see. I think legislative-wise, for codes and administrative code stuff, I wouldn't want to run against it if I was running for a state seat. So, we'll see.
In Georgia, no, we love money and business.
I don't think there's that much money made relative to litigation.
Well, it
costs,
doesn't
to be
matter,
honest.
but
Yeah.
we
But
love money and
it's
business.
funny because often the political wherewithal to open stuff up comes from the transparency folks, which often find themselves aligned with, frankly, Republican and Tea Party. The House of Representatives under Republican leadership has been as good as any legislative body. Somebody's going to correct me. They've been really good since that came to pass. And it's I won't name names, but somebody was telling me at this conference, I wasn't a part of this back in the Clinton era. I was floating on a big gray boat, but somebody was telling me that the Clinton era was horrible for open access. So the politics don't necessarily line up always in a predictable way.
Daryl Issa is very pro-free
Yeah.
information.
He's San
Very
Diego, Miles
conservative.
stopping guys, right?
Yes, the Sunlight people love him
Yeah, really.
on some things.
Find your allies where you can.
That's true.
Anything else?
Nobody has actually looked at the Georgia regulations, which you can't find unless you go through something like LII, because they're hidden under Brian Kemp, about Brian Kemp, and then important links. You cannot find them on the Secretary of State's page. Then you have to put in your name and do a math problem to even be able to view them. They're that worried about people trying to scrape up the thrillingness that is Georgia regulation, which if you've never worked with Georgia regulation, it is set up in alphabetical order by agency. And even by program. So you can, there's the tax, revenue, and then there's right from the start, which is a program for children.
Tom Bruce, if you're out there, I found our next big regulations project.
But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. But that shows you how little people care about the regulatory portion. They don't even know they exist.
Well, and it's funny, right? Because I get the feeling that sometimes you've got entities, whatever they are, responding to some mandate to make their stuff available. And the only reason they do it is to comply with that mandate, because it just makes their life harder, not just from a technical standpoint, but because transparency isn't necessarily good for business. And so you get stuff like that. They meet the minimum requirements set forth in the legislation that's compelling them to publish online, but they do it in such a way that it's worthless, and it's not incompetence.
Yeah.
It's something else.
Another fun fact: to get a regulation into the regulations, the agency writes it, sends it to the Secretary of State. It's a regulation.
I went to high school in Georgia, so I'm
born and raised. I love this place.
I can smirk.
I don't necessarily love how we run things.
All of you out there from states where you just love the way your state government runs things, raise your hand. Really, what?
Somebody.
Washington's good.
Maryland?
Nobody from Illinois is saying anything.
Well, Illinois has that weird statute numbering system.
Well, unless there's anything else, thank you for coming. I hope that was worth your time. That's fun.
We're free.
Well, I know, but I had to. Oh no, I had to pay
Free, period.
$1,000 a year. Right, but still, in order to have them, I had to pay Darby. No one told us that Darby was going out of business.
Save my
And
change.
then suddenly we were like, you have a right there and say, you can see them.
Ah, yes, a PC. I've forgotten.
Yeah, well,
Device is currently in use. No, it's not.
to defend anything South Carolina does. Yeah.
Oh,
I like it.
you son of a bitch.
You become Secretary of State. Last time you were Secretary of State.
Careful.
Well, first of all,
Hi.
How do you find time? As I can't job very
The gift is 10 grand. The gift is 10 grand. That's how much money we have. Minimum. The funny thing about you is Tom was saying the other day.
Oyez. I live in the neighborhood.
Tom was saying the other day about how optimistic he is about where we are, that we've sort of cracked the code on how to use engineering students, and that there are all these projects out there that he would like to do that essentially amount to big data grabs, I think is the phrase he used. And he said, really, all we lack is a consulting law librarian that could come to campus twice a semester.
So what is it you want the law library to do? That you were
Fix wax.
Look at all the law librarians showing up.
So you know Jack? You know Jack?
I'm in the building, and the thing is, it's a matter of like if you want to recruit somebody, because I don't really have time to shave off of what I do already, but it's
Well, you know Jack Lewis. He's a. I should step away from the microphone.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
not sure the covering it is good enough.
See, somebody gets a lot of money.
We get outside and somebody.
Just like the government, you will never know what happened.
These ceiling lights are live. See, actually, you can wall.
Points to 10. Points to 10.
That was amazing.
It's true.
Emily. Huh?
How did the tech tour go?
It was good. Ours was kind of short,
Okay.
so I didn't see the classrooms,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Inspection.
Huh?
You're doing your own inspection.
Yeah.
At the,
Oh, you did?
oh, you don't? Projector or the camera?
No, the little camera.
Microphones. And that's the challenge.
No, I was just looking at stuff.
Inspecting the room?
Room tech, because it was, the classroom tech wasn't included on the tech tour.
Oh,
Yeah, I was doing.
it's pretty fun. Pretty good. I think we could put up the blinds. Wonder if
I
that
think
would
it-
affect
they-
the recording.
The shades are here open,
I don't think that one. Oh, maybe it does.
so
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
which is really neat.
Now you can check if it's raining or not.
Yeah, I had to do research assistant training like last week, and I was like, we're doing this with the blinds up. We're looking outside.
I just can't get this to work. I did want to just see the main screen. Side screen.
Sure. Wonder whose flash drive this is.
Are you coming down or are you staying?
I'm staying for their presentation, so I'm just hanging out here. Oh, hell no.
So he's currently in use. Of course it is. They're always in use. Oh man,
Collar is attached.
that's pretty cool.
You gonna load, did you?
Hmm?
You save it onto the USB?
I have lots of patterns that I'm sent through.
Yep.
Belt.
Here we go, plays.
Yeah.
We found it at store, but it's actually from IKEA. Some of them I came up with.
Couldn't. Oh. No problem. No. Enable. Wow. To another team. Right. No. Yes. Oh, wow. Why is this making noises?
Gonna get breakfast with it, and people are like, you have 11, you can go down there. Great, I'm doing that now. Just to mention, I run. More different faculty.
Oops. There we go. No, don't. Oh, shit. Good. All right. What else do you need?
But you need to talk to me because I'm the one that can convince him that this is a benefit to him. And that it's just a simple checkbox, we just need to put in the exact. Yep.
Wait.
All our stuff is just nonsense.
It's kind of funny though. We'll be like, this is what we've been talking about. And I'll show a report and be like, this is the Google reports that says Patrick and Avery fail at life because it says like how many tasks have been done in the past like 2 days and stuff like that.
PowerPoint template. Kind of like it. High contrast.
No, because I think it stays in this box that I make unless I just make.
I just think it's so weird. Up in a tall building because all you see is like building. Walk over and you're like, oh,
There's a car.
there's cars right there.
Streets.
Yeah, the one across from the.
Is that good?
It was very good food. It was kind of funny because I think
What's happening?